So for a long time, I've avoided investing into social media stocks because I was under the impression that I didn't understand them. But recently, it's become fairly clear and apparent to me that it's not I who doesn't understand social media stocks, but it's everybody else who doesn't understand social media stocks. The people who invest into companies like Snapchat and Twitter, they don't really seem to understand what these companies should be worth fundamentally. So Snapchat recently had its IPO and it opened at about $25 and it went all the way to, I think it was close to 29 at some point. And ever since then, ever since its peak, it's been dropping fairly significantly and it's lost about 43% of its value in 3 months. And this is at a time when the general market is doing quite well. So clearly this company was overvalued. And a lot of people, a lot of analysts, they were saying that this company is overvalued and that it should not be worth what it is currently worth, but nobody listened, which listening to analysts isn't always the greatest of ideas because they are also wrong quite a lot. But if you look at Snapchat's financials, their cost of revenue was higher than their revenue itself, meaning that for Snapchat to bring in $1 worth of revenue, they would need to spend more than $1. And of course, in addition to that, there's also research and development, sales and marketing, general and administrative, and a few other expenses. So the company is quite far away from being profitable. And paying a premium of $30 billion for a company that is quite far away from being profitable and that I would say has a limited monetizability and the profitability that they can make or the amount of money that they can make. I mean, paying $30 billion for them, it just seems ridiculous. And if you look at similar companies like Twitter, you tend to see a pattern. So Twitter had a similar IPO where it started off really, really high or higher than a lot of people thought that it would be. It went up even higher and then it just dropped from that point on. If you look at a company like Twitter, you get a similar picture as to Snapchat. So to give you an analogy for social media companies, something that I think that a lot of people don't understand is this. So if we had a company like Apple, if Apple sold iPhones for $15 a piece, let's just say, if Apple sold iPhones for $15 a piece, the company would never be able to make a profit. They would be selling a lot of iPhones, they would be bringing in a ton of money, but they would never actually become profitable. So at that price, the company would just not be profitable. And at a certain point, it would go bankrupt. And the iPhones themselves would still be worth something. You know, the copyrights, the patents, the trademark of the iPhone would still be worth a lot of money, but the company itself would not be a good investment because they would never be able to make any money. And I think that that's something that people have a much tougher time spotting when it comes to social media companies. So a company like Twitter, for example, Twitter has never made any money. Twitter has been losing about $500 million a year, and they don't seem to be anywhere close to being able to make any money. Their most recent quarter, they did lose less money. They lost only 60 million as opposed to a little bit over 100 million in other quarters, but they're still losing 60 million a quarter, and that's still a lot. And I think that there's this disconnect between what these companies can actually be worth, because we have a company named Facebook, and Facebook has been an extremely successful company that has, really nice returns over the past 5 years. And I think that people just don't really get Facebook, or they don't get social media companies well enough. So a company like Facebook was really successful because it was one of the first social media companies to actually come into play and actually do everything properly. Really competent management and just everything done properly. But after that point, any social media companies that came into play, they had a problem of having to battle other social media companies. So the difference between a Snapchat and a Facebook at their infancy is that Snapchat has a lot more competition than Facebook had 5 years ago. So if Snapchat brings you a service that is really, really popular that a lot of people want and desire, Facebook can copy that service. So if let's say Snapchat brings you a service that is really popular by a lot of people, that service is worth less because, first of all, other companies can copy it, and second of all, the social media market is already heavily saturated. So the company is not worth the same amount of money as Facebook would have been worth at a similar level 5 years ago, or even Snapchat. If Snapchat was invented 5 years ago, it would be worth more than it's worth now at a similar stage, right? Because 5 years ago there was less competition, and you could have obtained more of a market share 5 years ago than you can now. Now it's harder. So the idea that you should be paying the same premiums for a company like Snapchat today that you would be paying for Facebook about 5 years ago, it's ridiculous. It's completely ridiculous. And Snapchat doesn't even offer the same level of depth that a company like Facebook offers. Like Facebook is much more easier to monetize than somebody like Snapchat or Twitter, and people are still paying similar premiums for them, which is ridiculous. And also there's the giant problem that I've already stated, that Facebook can simply copy what Snapchat is doing and just have a similar service, offer a similar service. And Facebook has a lot more resources to make sure that their service is better than Snapchat's if they wish to copy and make a similar service to Snapchat. So that's the major problem that I think exists for social media companies. Also, for a company like Twitter, I think that a lot of people don't understand the fundamental differences between something like Twitter and Facebook. So Facebook and Twitter are quite different platforms, despite the fact that I don't think a lot of people fully comprehend their differences. So Twitter is a lot more reliant upon, I would say, politics. I mean, Twitter does have that side where you can follow your celebrities and all that stuff, but let's just say that that's not that important. I think that the bread and butter of Twitter is politics, to be honest. And politics, people like to follow certain figures that they look up to. Like Trump has been very popular on Twitter because he tweets directly to the people, and that's an idea of a modern president, as he states it. And a lot of people like that. So a lot of people like following politics and like looking at certain views and opinions on Twitter. Now, Twitter doesn't allow you to do very in-depth views, but it allows you to state your views and opinions on an issue in a fairly quick and concise manner. But the problem with Twitter is that it censors opinions. So Twitter has been censoring quite a bit of political views if they are unpopular. So if you live in Europe, especially, even in the US, but if you live in Europe and you have a political opinion that's not popular, Twitter will censor you, maybe even ban you if you state something that's unpopular. So if you criticize Islam, for example, on Twitter and you're in Europe, you're probably going to get banned. You might even potentially go to jail, because that is a thing. You can get sent to jail for criticizing Islam on Twitter, which is ridiculous. But the problem with something like Twitter is that they seem to be limiting the amount of free speech that you can have on the platform. When their platform, their platform requires free speech to survive, which is kind of antithetical, but it seems to be what's happening. Also, Twitter, by the way, it's owned by a Saudi Arabian prince, or he at least owns a large portion of Twitter. And whenever you have a Saudi Arabian prince owe a large portion of a platform that requires free speech, and Saudi Arabia is not necessarily a country that is very good at free speech and stuff like that, I don't know. I'm not particularly a fan of that. So that's my issue. So Twitter, a company like Twitter, seems to have the problem of, first of all, not being profitable under the current management, and also they are staggering their growth by banning a lot of people and censoring people. So I just don't get these companies. Well, I do get these companies, but a lot of people seem to not get these companies. The fact that they can never become profitable under what they're currently doing. And I don't know. I don't know why people are investing into them. I mean, Twitter had a little uptick of users, which is why it's currently going up, but still, I mean, come on. The platform is not close to being profitable. Even if it does become profitable anytime soon, there's still the major problem of Twitter censoring everybody, and that's going to stagger its growth in the near future. So, just something that I wanted to talk about. It's a rant that I've been meaning to do for quite a while. And let me know if I've got everything right, or if there's something that I'm missing, if there's something that you want to add to. I'm curious to see what other people think.